Hey there, welcome back. You mentioned you were really interested in exploring practical strategies for managing low moods and building resilience, especially when it comes to motivation. And you specifically requested a deep dive into Dr. Julie Smith's book, Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? So that's exactly what we're doing today. Now, I've got to say, this book was like a breath of fresh air. It's full of actionable tools that are backed by science, which is right up our alley.
What I found fascinating is that Dr. Smith takes these potentially complex psychological concepts and makes them so relatable. She doesn't just throw theory at you. She actually gives you tools you can use in your daily life, all grounded in solid research.
It really did feel like she was sitting down for a chat, not giving a lecture. One of the things that really resonated with me was how she explained the cyclical nature of low moods. Have you ever noticed how one bad thought seems to snowball into a whole avalanche of negativity?
Absolutely. She actually illustrates this with a diagram in the book, Figure 2, showing how negative thoughts feed low mood,
Hmm.
which then makes us even more prone to negative thoughts. It can feel like you're stuck in a downward spiral. And this is a but she emphasizes that we have more power to influence our emotions than we might think.
Okay, so that's a huge takeaway right there. It's not about never feeling down. It's about learning to navigate those feelings and having the tools to shift your perspective. So how do we start breaking free from that negativity spiral?
Well, the first step is understanding our thought patterns, specifically what Dr. Smith calls thought biases. These are like little mental shortcuts our brains take that can distort our perceptions, especially when we're already feeling low. And they can be super sneaky.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
Picture this. You finally work up the courage to post that creative project online, and you get tons of positive feedback. But one person leaves a snarky comment. And what happens? You hyperfocus on that single negative comment, completely ignoring all the praise. Dr. Smith calls this the mental filter bias, and it's a classic mood killer.
Ouch. Yeah, I think we've all been there. That's a perfect example of how thoughts aren't necessarily facts. I know I'm definitely guilty of overgeneralizing. Spill my coffee in the morning. It's like my brain decides the entire day is doomed.
It's funny how our brains do that, but it's a great illustration of how these biases work. And there are so many more, like egocentric thinking, which is when we impose our own rules on others and feel personally let down when they don't live up to our expectations.
Okay, so we've got mental filters, overgeneralization, and egocentric thinking. These thought biases sound like they can really do a number on our moods. So how do we challenge them?
The key is to step back and question those thoughts. Ask yourself, is this thought really true? What's another way to look at this situation? What would I say to a friend who is having this thought? Dr. Smith reminds us to look for more balanced and compassionate interpretations.
It's almost like we need to become thought detectives. Look for clues, examine the evidence, and see if those thoughts hold up under scrutiny. I love that. So we're starting to understand the power of our thoughts, but how do we actually shift our mood when we're feeling stuck?
Dr. Smith is a big proponent of taking action, even small steps, rather than waiting to feel better. She uses a fantastic analogy of building defenses for our mental health. Imagine a soccer team. You've got your offensive players who are trying to score, but you also need a strong defense to protect your goal. Exercise, sleep, and nutrition are like those defensive players, essential for our mental well-being.
That's a brilliant analogy. It makes so much sense. I've definitely noticed that when I'm exercising regularly, I just feel better overall.
Now, there's a ton of research to back that up.
Right.
Exercise, even in small amounts, has been shown to have powerful antidepressant effects. It's incredible how something as simple as a brisk walk can boost your mood.
Okay, so exercise is a key player on our mental defense team. What about sleep? We all know how cranky we can get when we're sleep deprived, but how does lack of sleep actually affect our mental health?
Sleep deprivation really does wreak havoc on our mood and cognitive function. It affects our ability to think clearly, regulate emotions, and even make sound decisions. So getting enough sleep isn't just about feeling rested, it's crucial for our mental well-being.
I'm definitely hearing that wake-up call, but I know so many people struggle with getting a good night's sleep. Any practical tips from Dr. Smith on improving sleep hygiene?
Absolutely. She suggests creating a relaxing bedtime routine, dimming the lights in the evening, avoiding screens before bed, and making sure your bedroom is cool, dark, and quiet. Simple things, but they can make a world of difference.
Okay, so we've got exercise and sleep covered. What about the third member of our mental defense team, nutrition? I've always been curious about the link between food and mood.
It's a fascinating connection. What we eat has a direct impact on our brain function and mood. Dr. Smith highlights the Mediterranean diet as an excellent choice for supporting mental well-being. It's rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, healthy fats, and lean protein, all the good stuff our brains need to thrive.
So we've got our mental defense strategy in place with exercise, sleep, and nutrition. But what are some other practical tools we can use to actively shift our mood when we're feeling low?
Dr. Smith introduces some really powerful mindfulness techniques. Have you ever tried a gratitude practice?
I've dabbled in it, but honestly, I haven't made it a consistent habit.
It's one of those deceptively simple practices that can have a profound impact. The idea is to spend a few minutes each day simply writing down 3 things you're grateful for. It could be anything: a sunny morning, a delicious meal, a kind gesture from a stranger.
So it's about actively training our brains to focus on the good stuff, even when we're surrounded by negativity.
Exactly. And it helps to rewire our brains over time, making us more likely to notice and appreciate the positive aspects of our lives.
That makes sense. I know that when I'm feeling down, it's so easy to get stuck in a negative thought loop. It's like my brain has blinders on to anything
It's
good.
a common trap. But Dr. Smith also emphasizes the importance of bringing mindfulness into our everyday activities, not just formal meditation practices.
Okay, I'm all about finding practical ways to integrate mindfulness into my busy life. What are some examples?
Think about routine tasks like showering or brushing your teeth. How often do you find yourself going through the motions without really paying attention?
Oh, all the time. My mind is usually racing through my to-do list or replaying conversations from earlier in the day.
That's where mindfulness comes in. Instead of letting your mind wander, try to bring your full attention to the sensations of the warm water on your skin, the taste of the toothpaste, the sound of the toothbrush.
It's about transforming those mundane tasks into mindful moments. I like that.
And the amazing thing is that these small acts of mindfulness can ripple out into other areas of our lives. We start to feel more present and grounded, less reactive to stress.
I can see how that would be a game changer, especially when it comes to dealing with difficult emotions. Dr. Smith has a whole section on that, right?
Yes. One of the most profound insights from the book for me was her emphasis on accepting difficult emotions rather than trying to fight them or push them away.
That's interesting. It seems counterintuitive, but I'm curious to hear more.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can push it down for a while, but eventually it's going to pop back up with even more force.
Oh, I totally get that analogy. I've definitely experienced that with my own emotions. The more I resist, the stronger they seem to become. So what's the alternative?
Dr. Smith suggests that instead of resisting, we try to approach our emotions with curiosity and compassion. Give them a name, allow ourselves to experience them without judgment, and see what we can learn from them.
So it's almost like we're befriending our emotions, even the difficult ones.
Exactly. And she even provides a tool called the feeling wheel, which helps us identify and label a wider range of emotions.
I love that. It's like expanding our emotional vocabulary so that we can express ourselves more fully and understand our inner world better.
Precisely. And once we can recognize and name our emotions, we can start to develop healthier ways of responding to them instead of just reacting impulsively.
Okay, so we're learning to recognize and accept our emotions. But what about those times when our emotions feel really overwhelming, like they're about to sweep us away? What are some practical strategies for riding those waves?
Dr. Smith talks about creating a self-soothing box filled with items that bring you comfort and help you regulate your emotions. It's like a first aid kit for your mental health.
I love that idea. What kind of things would go in a self-soothing box?
It's really personal, but it could include things like soft blanket aromatherapy oils, a journal, and pen a playlist of calming music, inspiring quotes, a favorite book, or even a small fidget toy.
It's about having those resources readily available when you need them most. I'm totally creating a self-soothing box this week.
I think it's such a brilliant idea, and it reminds us that self-care isn't selfish. It's essential for our mental well-being.
Speaking of self-care, I know this might seem like a bit of a jump, but Dr. Smith debunks a big myth when it comes to motivation. It's not about waiting for inspiration to strike. It's about action.
She makes the point that motivation often follows action, not the other way around. Think about that feeling you get after a workout.
Okay, yeah, I get it. It's like, why did I put this off for so long? I'm always more motivated after I've started.
Exactly. It's the same with most things. Once we take that first step, even if it's a tiny one, the motivation often kicks in.
So what are some strategies for cultivating motivation when we're feeling stuck?
Dr. Smith recommends starting small up time, setting up your environment for success, and focusing on the internal rewards of taking action.
I'm all about setting up my environment for success. What does that look like practically?
If you want to start exercising in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you're trying to eat healthier, make sure you have plenty of healthy snacks readily available.
Those little things can make a big difference. It's about making those healthy choices the easy choices.
Right. And focusing on internal rewards is about connecting to the deeper why behind your goals.
So instead of just focusing on the outcome, like losing weight or getting a promotion, it's about tapping into the values that drive those goals.
Exactly, like feeling healthier and more energized or feeling aligned with your purpose. When our motivation is rooted in our values, it becomes much more sustainable.
That's powerful. So we've covered a lot of ground here, understanding thought biases, building mental defenses, cultivating mindfulness, and nurturing motivation.
Yeah.
And I know there's even more to unpack.
There is. And one area that Dr. Smith addresses here on, and that you specifically mentioned wanting to learn more about, is managing anxiety.
Yes, this is something I know a lot of people struggle with, myself included. What are some of the key takeaways from the book on teaming anxiety?
Dr. Smith explains that anxiety is essentially our brain's smoke alarm going off. Even when there's no real fire, it's our body's natural fear response,
Yeah.
trying to protect us from danger.
But as you mentioned earlier, sometimes that alarm system can get a little overzealous, right? Like when we're feeling anxious about a presentation at work, even though our lives aren't actually in danger.
Exactly. Our brains haven't quite caught up to the complexities of modern life. And this is where Dr. Smith's approach really resonated with me. She argues that avoiding our fears while seemingly helpful in the short term actually makes anxiety worse in the long run.
That makes sense. It's like we're just reinforcing that the feared situation is something to be avoided at all costs.
Precisely. So what she suggests instead is facing our fears gradually and with intention. She even shares a personal anecdote about overcoming her fear of heights by climbing the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's a great example of how facing our fears, even when it's uncomfortable, can ultimately help us reclaim our power.
Okay, so avoidance makes anxiety worse, and facing our fears helps us build resilience. But what about those moments when anxiety is already gripping us? What are some practical techniques for calming down in those situations?
Dr. Smith outlines several strategies, and one of the simplest yet most effective is square breathing. You breathe in for a count of 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4 again. It's a quick way to regulate your heart rate and bring a sense of calm.
I've heard of that one. I'm definitely going to try it next time I'm feeling anxious. What are some of the other tools she recommends?
She talks about the importance of distancing yourself from anxious thoughts, recognizing them as just thoughts, not facts, and then gently shifting your spotlight of attention towards something more calming and positive, whether it's a favorite memory, an affirmation, or even just the sensation of your breath.
I love that imagery of shifting the spotlight. It makes me think of those old-fashioned theater lights slowly illuminating a new area of the stage. It's a gentle reminder that we have the power to choose where we focus our attention.
Exactly. And
Mm.
she also highlights the power of reframing the situation. She gives a great example of how she reframed her anxiety about her Viva exam, turning it from a high-pressure test into an opportunity to showcase her knowledge and passion.
That's such a powerful shift in perspective. It reminds me that even in challenging situations, there are often hidden opportunities for growth and learning.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another essential theme in the book, self-compassion. Dr. Smith emphasizes the importance of treating ourselves with kindness, especially when we're struggling or facing setbacks.
I think this is where so many of us stumble. We're quick to criticize ourselves, but often forget to offer ourselves the same compassion we'd readily extend to a friend.
It's so true. And Dr. Smith offers some practical advice for cultivating self-compassion, like challenging negative self-talk and replacing it with more supportive language.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we are all works in progress, perfectly imperfect in our own unique ways.
I love that phrase, perfectly imperfect. It's such a good reminder that we don't have to strive for some unrealistic ideal of perfection. It's okay to embrace our flaws and imperfections as part of what makes us human.
And part of being human is experiencing the full spectrum of emotions, including the difficult ones. Dr. Smith dedicates a whole chapter to the importance of relationships and how they contribute to our overall well-being. She actually cites research from the Harvard study of adult development, which found that close relationships are one of the strongest predictors of a long and happy life.
That's amazing. It really highlights how crucial healthy relationships are for our mental and emotional well-being.
And she also debunks some common relationship myths, like the idea that love shouldn't be hard, or that compatible couples never argue.
Right. Real relationships take work communication and a willingness to navigate the inevitable ups and downs.
Absolutely. And Dr. Smith provides some really practical advice for strengthening relationships. She talks about the importance of prioritizing self-care, focusing on emotional responsiveness and practicing respectful complaining.
I've never thought of self-care as a foundation for healthy relationships, but it makes perfect sense. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. When we take care of our own needs, we're better equipped to show up for the people we care about. And then there's emotional responsiveness.
Yeah.
It's about being attuned to our partner's needs and responding in a way that makes them feel safe and secure.
That creates a sense of connection and fosters trust. And what about respectful complaining?
It's about addressing issues in a way that is kind, constructive, and focused on behaviors rather than personal attacks. It's about finding a way to communicate your needs without blaming or shaming your partner.
It's about remembering that you're on the same team even when you're working through a disagreement.
Exactly. And all of these strategies can help us cultivate more fulfilling and meaningful relationships. And that brings us to the final chapter of Dr. Smith's book, which focuses on creating a life of meaning and purpose.
This is such an important topic, and I know it's something that resonates deeply with you. What are some of the key takeaways from this chapter?
Dr. Smith introduces the concept of values-based living. It's about defining what truly matters to us and then making choices that align with those values.
It's about figuring out what we stand for and making sure our actions reflect those values.
Precisely. And she provides some practical exercises like the values check-in and the values star. These can help us clarify our values and identify areas where we might want to make some changes.
I'm really intrigued by the values star. How does that work?
It's a visual exercise where you rate your level of satisfaction in different life domains based on your values. You connect those ratings to create a star shape, and the shorter points of the star indicate areas where you might want to focus more attention.
It's a great way to get a visual representation of your values and see where you might be out of alignment. And Dr. Smith encourages us to set goals that are rooted in our values, not just external achievements.
Exactly. It's about finding that intrinsic motivation that comes from living in accordance with what we believe in. And she leaves us with this powerful message. The focus is not on what you want to happen for you, but on the kind of person you want to be, the contribution you want to make, and the attitude you want to face life with no matter what happens.
I love that. It's such an empowering message. It reminds us that we have the power to shape our lives, even in the face of challenges.
It's been such an insightful deep dive into Dr. Smith's book. It's packed with practical wisdom and evidence-based strategies for cultivating greater emotional well-being and resilience.
I agree. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools for navigating life's ups and downs, and I know you're eager to explore these tools further, so I highly recommend checking out Dr. Smith's book and her Instagram at Dr. Julie for additional resources and videos.
And remember, it's not about mastering every technique perfectly. It's about finding the tools that resonate with you and incorporating them into your life in a way that feels sustainable and authentic.
It's about progress, not perfection. And as Dr. Smith reminds us, the key is to keep practicing and keep learning. Our emotional well-being is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
So true. We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and inspiration for your own journey.
Remember, you have the power to shape your emotional well-being and create a more fulfilling life. And as you continue on your journey, remember to be kind to yourself. Stay curious and never underestimate your capacity for growth and transformation.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll catch you in the next episode.